Hello and welcome to Stockton Junction. Today's video is going to be about doing the weathering on the track work, and obviously I'm going to be using the K-Moon compressor and airbrush just so that we can give it a full test out and see how it goes. So what I've done, I've obviously pre-mixed my sleeper grime paint, and that is a 50-50 mix, and that is the rail match sleeper grime that I'm using, which is the acrylic version. So obviously just need to put some of that into the airbrush and we're ready to roll. I've set the PSI to around 40. 30 is sort of the minimum you want, but I think I'll try it at 40, see how that goes, see if we need to change the setting, etc. as we go along. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off just with this area here on the video, just to show you what I do, and that'll be it for now. I'll just set the camera up where you can see that nicely, and I'm just going to put some paint into the airbrush. Now I do tend to use these lids like this for my paint, because when you mix them you can squeeze it like that and pour. It makes it very easy for pouring into the airbrush without spillages. You get a tiny little run, but you don't lose loads of paint by doing it that way. So obviously, like I said, I haven't used this airbrush yet, so right, so my airbrush is filled ready, and I've sort of just given it a quick test and we're ready to go. So how I usually tend to do this is I'll spray the sides of the tracks first, and I'm looking for full coverage of most of the ballast, as in what I've done on the previous ballasting, on the previous weathering. So just gonna the edge is done. Now I'm going to spray the insides again as well. Before I continue, just one thing to bear in mind. If you're running a DC layout, I would put some blue tack here and here where the point blades are, because obviously what could happen is the paint would get on the insides of these blades and stop your contact. If you're reliant on power being contacted through here to come to this side, then you need to do that. Because my layout is DCC, I have all of my points have a live frog to connect to these, which is done through the point motor underneath, and they also are all wired underneath onto these rails, on the two outer rails from underneath. So I'm not bothered about paint spray in these areas because it's not going to affect running on my locos. But obviously if you're running a DC and you do need that power, make sure to just cover those blade areas with a couple of bits of blue tack or something, or you will have a lot of problems later on. Right, so that's the main colour done on there. Just bring that round and you can see that's the main colour. Now, because this is for the permanent way depot, I've got obviously a point for them to work on, a slip point here. Then I've got normal concrete sleeper area, and then we've got the more modern concrete sleepers that have the metal tie bars through the middle. So they've got all different types of sort of track work to practice and work on for, you know, as they would do for their training. So now obviously before I can go to the next colour on this, I do need to finish the rest of the layout with the sleeper grime, because otherwise it's just going to be changing paints over all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carry on with that. It's pretty easy and quick. So I shall carry on doing all of the sleeper grime. So I've got obviously all of this section here to do, and basically all of that down there as well. So what I'll do is I'll carry on with that, and I'll bring you back when I've completed that and I'm ready to start the next section with the next colouring. So you join me back after I've done all the sleeper grime. I've done the whole area, and already it's a major improvement. It looks so much better already, in my opinion, obviously. But we're going to now finish the second stage of painting, which is like what I've done on there. So we're now going to use another paint. I'm just trying to find a pot. Right, so we're now going to use this one, which is the roof dirt. Again, it's another acrylic by Rail Match, RM2403. And as I said before, these have to be thinned 50-50. They work perfectly thinned at that amount. And just in case you want to know, this is the thinners I'm using, which is the waterborne thinners. You can pick them up quite easily. It's an HMG product. These work perfectly with this paint, and they spray flawlessly with these the airbrush using that thinner. Obviously I've tried various different thinners on different paints, and it's just a bit of trial and error to work out which ones you need to use for which paints. But I will say this, if you mix your paint and then you find that you're starting to get any problems on the top of the paint and it starts to separate at all, that's not going to spray very well, it's going to clog. So basically the next stage, I'll just adjust this camera a little bit, sorry about that. Move that out of the way, is literally just the inner line. So I've mixed up my paint and all I'm going to do is spray like that, straight down the centre. Nice long even. So basically that is all that's left to do, and I'll give you a zoom in. As you can see, it'll look, once dried, more like that. Obviously I've got lots of little bits of ballast on there that have fallen off, been blown around by the airbrush, so I need to go and hoover all this afterwards. But then that's the effect that we're going to be coming up with once this is dry. And also the other thing I found is you get a few patches like that where the ballast hasn't glued properly, and that's where these bits are coming from. It's actually easier to see them at this point, so I shall then fill them, and it'll be easier to spot where I've filled and just need to touch up with the airbrush later on. I've got another couple of issues up here, if I can find them, like that, where I've obviously forgotten to put the glue in. There's a little patch just under there, but this is the problem when you're doing a large area, it's harder to spot where it's all going, which has been glued and which hasn't, because it doesn't really change that much colour. So it's always going to be quite easy to just touch that up later on. So I shall finish this off, and then I'll come back to you and show you the final result of that. Okay, I'll see you shortly. So you join me back. It's been about half an hour, and in that time I've sprayed all this and gone for a coffee. So it didn't take long, took me about 5 minutes to finish all of this, literally. I think it's looking an awful lot better than what it was. I'm quite happy with that. One thing I was hoping for, which worked quite well, is that little section of track you can see, probably just see the joiners there. I added on later just to extend those tracks, and I wanted to make them slightly longer. So what I had, the problem was this lot was a lot darker, but it's actually come out pretty blended in quite well. The only problem I did have is because I forgot to put a bit of card at the end there, so the brick walling has been covered, but I'm going to cover that with some greenery later on. So just going back to the airbrush itself, obviously, as I said at the beginning of the video, I set it, switch that off, 40 psi, and that worked really well. That worked perfectly. The other thing I didn't, obviously it's got the moisture catch pit thing there, which has got a little drain on it, which you can put a pipe on if you want, little tube, so you can drain it off into something if once it gets any water in it. because that's what it's for. It's to keep water out so that you don't get moisture in the air as much, which is definitely better for the airbrush. So compared to my old Expo airbrush kit, it's a big improvement, especially seeing as I paid pretty much the same sort of price for it. Obviously the Expo is a branded, you know, top quality brand product, and I'm not dissing it. It's ideal for someone who only with a small layout and is only going to do a little bit of airbrushing. Perfect product. If you're going to be doing a big layout and a lot of other airbrushing on top of that, which I will be, then something like that is brilliant. Just the other thing I wanted to mention while we're talking about the airbrushes is cleaning. Obviously I've got one of these. This is a little cleaning pot. The idea is that you can spray your cleaner in, and it's got a little filter so it doesn't all go in the air, because obviously I'm using acrylics for most of that. It's not so toxic. So what I bought, is this Spraycraft airbrush cleaner. I picked that up at Hobbycraft. It's probably a bit expensive, but I happened to be there at the time. It's a Revel product, and what you do is gently spray some in there. As you can see, you might be able to see, I've got a bit in there. I've already cleaned the brush, and basically what you do is you just, well, of course I've switched the air compressor off, just let it spray through, and that's empty now. So a bit of a mess in here, I'm afraid, as you can see, and that's pretty good. And that's cleaned the airbrush nozzle out quite well. Obviously it just needs to take the end off, clean the rest of it. And what I tend to do with that is, using a pot like that, I usually put some thinners in it. I take off my nozzle, and this one as well, and that lot is pretty clean because I've already sprayed the thinners through that. So just put that carefully in there, because you don't want to, obviously where there's the needle's sticking out now, so you've got to be very careful not to bend that needle. So this is another good thing for this, because I can leave that there safely. And what I tend to do is put some thinners in there, look, get some of that dirt and rubbish out, use my little brushes to clean those out, and that's it. So that's the end of the video. I've got to say that the Calimoon airbrush has come into its own. It's absolutely brilliant. So barring the hose issue that came when I bought it, can't complain. Absolutely impressed with it, very happy. So if you're looking to buy a compressor, this comes recommended. Obviously I've only had it a few days. I don't know what its life expectancy is going to be like. Only time will tell with that one, so I can't review that sort of thing. But for what it does right now, I'm very, very impressed. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I shall be doing another video very shortly, which I've already started actually, which you'll see in the next video, and I shall be hopefully uploading that within the next day or two. And I'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching. Could I just add though, I do get obviously quite a lot of views on my videos. Not as many as I would love, but quite a few. I've got a lot of subscribers, but I don't get many likes on my channel. So if you do like my videos, please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. I really appreciate it. It gives me feedback on whether you like the videos, and I would really like people to ask questions if they have questions. Feel free to put your input in. You know, tell me what sort of videos you like, what you'd rather see more of, that sort of thing. all feedback is really helpful for growing my channel. So thanks for watching and goodbye.